So Phil Spencer, head of Microsoft Gaming, came out and talked to a publication yesterday and said something that really got the internet buzzing on in every corner of the stratosphere. Now you got people in the gaming community that are looking at what Phil said, and of course the Microsoft apologists and the fanboys of Xbox, they're saying this is no big deal and the ponies are just acting crazy. Oh, they're in the stables. And then of course you got the PlayStation fanboys that are like kicking themselves, cracking up, belly rubbing, rolling on the ground about this. Like, yeah, we told you that Game Pass was a dud. But where does the truth lay? Is the truth with either side, or is it somewhere in the middle? I got a lot to say about this. I got some thoughts about this, and I really got something particular to say about the future or the potential future of Xbox that might surprise some people. But nonetheless, let's get into it. What's up, people? It's your boy MM2K of Hard Knock Digital Culture, Cloud Dosage, MM2K Gaming. Back again with another episode of The Dosage. This is where we talk about the latest and greatest in the video gaming space. And man, oh man, do we have one for you today. But before we get into it, hit that like button, that subscribe button, rock those bells for notifications. Please make sure they're set to all, or you're going to miss content. So if you don't want to miss anything, make sure those notifications are set to all. All right. So let's first take a look at what was actually said, right? What the big deal is all about. And then we'll circle back and we'll get into whether or not it's worth all the attention, or if there is actually a bright or promising future for Xbox in the means of Game Pass, to where they can like finally start seeing the success that they're hoping to see. Because we got to be honest here, I know a lot of people were like, well, Phil said that Xbox is successful with Game Pass and Game Pass is this and that. Look, you got to read the tea leaves. Compensation package was removed from the CEO's attention after it failed to reach benchmarks. They didn't say, oh, okay, we don't need to tie this to your compensation anymore, Satya. After it was making benchmarks, once it, was missing benchmarks, they removed it from his earnings package and his earnings discrepancies, right? Then they changed the overall value offering. Now, instead of, getting Game Pass to be very, very much a bargain and day and date across the board on the console tiers, they created these new tiers, and you got to pay $20 a month to get day and date. So they've lessened the value, or I'll say bargain. They've lessened the bargain on console and made it an ultra bargain on PC. It's kind of like they want you to toss your console away and go to PC and enjoy Game Pass, right? So we got to keep it a buck here. I think the truth is not owned by one fan side of the fanboy war or another, but we got to at least be honest about that part. Game Pass has not seen the results that the executive suite was actually hoping for, hence why the changes, some of the starts changes, and then now you're talking the way that you're talking, Phil, along with you not too long ago I think it was Bloomberg, where he said, it's only now making up 15% of our capacity as far as earnings are concerned. That's not the big talk we were expecting to hear based off everything that they were saying. So let's show you what was said that's gotten all this buzz first and foremost before we get too deep into that. This is courtesy of Hunter on Twitter. He quotes the Phil Spencer interview and says, Phil Spencer says Xbox Game Pass is not for everyone. Quote, I look at Game Pass as a healthy option for certain people. If you play 1 or 2 games a year, it probably isn't the right business model for you. You should just buy those 2 games. Now, people may see that and say, well, what is the big deal? How is that any different from what he's been saying? Well, in so many words, Microsoft, and to be fair to Microsoft and Xbox and Phil Spencer, they've never said that Game Pass, the goal of Game Pass was to be 80 to 90% of their revenue. But Game Pass was supposed to be part of a cyclical event that introduced gamers to games in a more accommodating way where they would normally be standoffish to engaging with more games, right? It would introduce gamers to games, get them all into the gaming fervor and get them all excited about the community and stuff like that, expose them to more games. And as games would leave Game Pass or whatever, or as people decided, I really like that game and I want to keep that in my catalog, I want to keep it in my library, you would go ahead and buy a license and go buy the license out of Game Pass and, you know, get it at a reduced price. So it was supposed to introduce people to more people to more games, right? And then give you access to keep that game, and then lastly save money and then rinse and repeat, right? And clearly that is not happening at the rate that Xbox was expecting outside of the pandemic. Just to show you that that was the expectation, here goes something that they had on Xbox Wire. This was on Xbox Wire on June 10th, 2021, when you started seeing Game Pass, seeing some of the growth because of the aftermath of the pandemic that made them very optimistic and thinking that this would be a staple within gaming. You can see here, just off this chart right here, that the cyclical event that I was talking about, it you know, Game Pass is like, look how Game Pass is at the center of that. You are the center of gaming, game anytime, anywhere, play on your PC, customize your experience, play anywhere in the cloud with gaming on mobile, the most powerful, fastest console ever built. Wow. Okay. Yeah, tell that to Digital Foundry. Next gen performance at an affordable price, and then right here, like smack dab in the center, was Game Pass. And Game Pass Ultimate. But there was even more, right? This is an article where Phil Spencer says there was belief that PlayStation was about to release something dang date as well to mimic Game Pass in the console tiers. And here's what Phil had to say about that. And speaking of, since Xbox head Phil Spencer recently spoke with IGN about the rumors of a PlayStation Game Pass alternative, and he believed that its impending arrival is an absolute certainty. He cites things like backwards compatibility and the desire to play any game at any time as part of the appeal of services like Game Pass, or the tentatively titled Spartacus. That was supposed to be the code name of the PlayStation tiers, which is now like the PlayStation Plus tiers, right? But there was the expectation that they would do day and date. And states that Sony's willingness to emulate Game Pass is a sign that such services are the wave of the future for the gaming industry, right? So again, may not be the but it was not, they didn't express it was the dominant way, but it was like an equally divided piece of the pie in their minds. And last but certainly not least, if you're not convinced that this is a change in strategy and approach, we go back to the beginning of this, towards the earlier years of this generation, June 10th to be exact, 2021. This is a fantastic Game Industry.biz article by Christopher Dring. I believe that he was part of an Xbox conference where they were talking to different publications about the future of Xbox and what their plans were. It was centered around, or the way he framed it was, Xbox wants to release a game every 3 months, but there was so much more in this. And one of the things that Phil Spencer said is this as follows. During this conversation that they were having about the future of Xbox at that time, Xbox Phil Spencer says the following, quote, across the Xbox ecosystem, we're now reaching hundreds of millions of people every month, and our total addressable market is going to grow while others are relatively static. As the Xbox ecosystem grows into both content and size, it becomes more valuable to both players and our partners. So right now, we are the only platform shipping games on console, PC, and cloud simultaneously. Others bring console games to PC years later, not only making people buy their hardware up front, but then charging them a second time to play on PC. This dude was talking crazy stuff at the beginning of the gen. Like, screw you, PlayStation. He said, but quote, and of course, all of our games are in the subscription service day one, full across platform included. So it again shows you the cyclical event that we showed you in that graph that they were expecting, where Game Pass was going to be an equal partner in that. Here's where it starts to really get interesting. there are really three. Phil Spencer continues to say there are really three, I think, areas of key areas where we believe we have incredible competitive advantage. First is our leadership in cloud gaming. Second, the resource we have to build out the subscription value with Game Pass. And third is our overall focus on empowering creators. I'm really excited about this opportunity in gaming. Again, the cyclical event, the pie equally divided between giving you access to the cloud, PC, consoles, and Game Pass being at the center of all that. He continues, one of the things we're seeing is that gaming and entertainment industries are changing in the ways that are really similar to the changes in Microsoft enterprise business, Spencer said. Continues, listen to this. In both consumer and enterprise, we are moving from packaged products and towards ongoing engagement in service-based relationships. In gaming, that's exactly what we're driving with Xbox Cloud Gaming and with Game Pass. And in both areas, Microsoft's assets in cloud and our global footprint are critical. So, there you have it. In case people were confused and they were like, well, Game Pass was never really that important, it was just an option. No, it was a cyclical strategy. Give people access to games that normally wouldn't have said access and increase their viability and their acumen on what's out there and what's possible to game with, the game on. In their mind, the pandemic showed them why the reason why more people aren't doing more gaming is because they're just not familiar with it. But if they get more introduced to it, they'll be able to engage more. And then something like a subscription service like Game Pass will be appealing across the board. That's why you saw the graphs like 100 million subscribers and all the other stuff that you heard from the FTC trial. This breaks that down. The belief system that if we put more games in front of more people, they will game more. And that's how you grow your product better so than what PlayStation and Nintendo was doing. That was Xbox's belief. Game Pass was at the center of that. But now you got him saying, again, what does he say? Let's go back. I look at Game Pass as a healthy option for certain people. If you play 1 or 2 games a year, it probably isn't the right business model for you, and you should just buy those 2 games. Okay, so what does this mean? This means that Xbox and Microsoft Gaming have conceded. Well, really, let's stop saying Xbox. Xbox technically, I mean, I know on paper they say Xbox Publishing and all other stuff, but the only person that's directly in charge of Xbox at the direct level is Sarah Bond. So anything in regards to Game Pass, Xbox Store, whether it's on console or PC, that is Sarah Bond. And whatever they're going to try to do with mobile, that's Sarah Bond. That's actually Xbox. That's the ecosystem. The entire gaming effort is Microsoft Gaming, which Phil is ahead of. So let me stop using the word Xbox. Microsoft Gaming has shifted their strategy where Game Pass is not as vital as we saw in that one excerpt as it was originally going to be at the beginning of this generation, because the belief system that if you put more games in front of more people, they will become more acclimated to the gaming culture. That was wrong. I tried to tell people that. A group of people that I tried to tell that is the beloved cloud community, which Microsoft talks about seeing a lot of growth in the cloud space. And because of that, I don't think, and I believe it's more percentage wise than anything, but anyways, it doesn't matter. Still growth. That being said, and the reason why I said I think it's more percentage wise than anything is I don't think it signifies any significant push towards mainstream acceptance. I talk to mainstream people all the time, whether they're fans of Xbox, whether they're fans of whatever, PlayStation, they're not checking for the cloud. I just think that what's going on is because you've had the death of Stadia, and people are looking for a viable platform, and I hear all this talk from Xbox. They truly believe that Xbox is committed. They're still talking about cloud gaming. They see statistics out there that, the percentage wise, this is where they see the growth. So this is where cloud gamers or have been flocking to, again, since the death of Stadia and the uncertainty that caused. That being said, you got to be able to see the staunch differences now between what they said previous and what they're saying now. And what they're saying now is Gamepass specifically is not an integral part to the promised land, because putting more games in front of people, like a lot of my cloud brethren thought, doesn't change anything systemically. It all depends upon your gaming appetite, right? Like, simply put, just because you have nothing to do, and let's just say you're bedridden. I'll give you an example. Say you get injured and you're bedridden, but before you got bedridden, you ate very light, you ate very infrequently. Now you're bored, you're bedridden, you can't do so. You're snacking a little bit more than possible, than normal. So you grab food or whatever, but you're a health nut. So as soon as you recover, you like, oh man, I got to shed these pounds. And then you separate yourself from eating even more, because it's like, oh, I got to get back to form. Because I've been sitting there eating stuff out of boredom, whatever. That, unfortunately, the game industry, and it wasn't just Microsoft. Microsoft, I think, just was the most affected by this, because unfortunately they made this belief system that gamer engagement would be systemic after the pandemic. I think they dug their nails deeper than everybody else. Why you saw these massive layoffs, like some of the largest were coming from Microsoft, and then you had the consolidation. But everybody across the board had overcompensated how big this was going to be for gaming, and that's why you had to see the correction in the game community, as far as the workers and stuff like that, which was unfortunate in the industry. But they really shot their shot, and they really stumbled, because they thought that those people would continue to lay in the bed and eat even after they recovered. And that's not the case. And what you started to see was the market correct itself even more rapidly, because these declines after the pandemic pretty much wasn't as big as an issue. These declines were more staunch than the growth. So people were like, oh my God, I can finally go outside. The hell with these games. You got to understand the culture. And that's knowing the artistry of it, and you got to understand the demographic. And to be fair to Microsoft, they weren't the only ones guilty of this, but they were the most penalized after the course was corrected, because I think of their lack of acumen to the community. I don't doubt that Phil Spencer doesn't love games. He is a true gamer. People that I know that are close to him, they would drop kick you in the face if you doubted him on that. But I don't think he understands his approach and his knack to games and how it differs from everybody else. I don't think he realizes how niche his affinity and his approach to gaming is versus the average gamer. And now he's starting to recognize it. And now he's starting to recognize that all gamers don't have the affinity that he has for everything. And just exposing them to more games is not the answer. And again, the cloud community debated me on this crazily. And I know it seems like I'm picking on them, but hey, I'm a true believer in delayed gratification. I tell people stuff, I let the dust settle, and then we can come back and see, do you see what I mean? I wasn't just capping. I wasn't just trying to be mean. I was trying to help broaden your education on this subject matter. You took offense to it because you were being emotional. You weren't being logical. Here's the logical aspect of this. The average gamer just wants to pick up 2 games. Matt Piscatella was on the funny, what was that? The Plenty Funny podcast. I'm sorry. I know I'm butchering it. The Kind of Funny podcast. He was there, and then there's a infamous or a viral snippet of him breaking down gaming buying habits. And I'm paraphrasing here, but he was like, there was 2 gamer groups that make most of the gamers out there, about 48% of them. When you combine the 2 groups, gamers on average buy anywhere between 0 to 2%. I mean, not 0 to 2%, 0 to 2 games a year. 48% of gamers only buy 0 to 2 games a year. Then you have another 5 to 15% that'll buy, maybe around 12 games a year. They'll buy anywhere between a game every other month to a game every month. They'll buy anywhere between like, I guess 7 to 12 games a year, 6 to 12 games a year, right? 15% buy anywhere between 5 to 15% will buy 6 to 12 games a year. So the majority of gamers are not like out buying games to where they would look at Game Pass as a value. They would look at it as a bargain. Oh, you can get all those games that would be a bargain if I wanted those games. And that's why I always argued people down when they said Game Pass is a great value. It is a great value. And sometimes in this community, you guys just flock the terminology because it sounds cool. You just want to be part of the crowd. Something can't be a value if it's not valuable. And if the average gamer only buys 2 games maximum, or the majority of gamers only buy 2 games maximum a year, being able to access 200, 300 games at once is not a value to them. I tried telling people this since 2018, 2019. It's a bargain, but it's not a value because it's not valuable. So simply put, that bargain isn't a value to the majority of gamers. 5 to 15 gamers fit in a category, 5 to 15% of gamers fit in a category where it would be a value to them. That's why Phil Spencer said in that interview, I believe it was Bloomberg, that Game Pass is only equating to 15% of the revenue. Why? Because only 5 to 15% of gamers would consider that a value. So the problem with Game Pass is its target demo, the pricing for the its target demo, and its structure. I don't think there's nothing wrong with a subscription service. Hell, I grew up on subscription services. Heck, most of the games that I've played in my older years, as a Nintendo NES gamer, I wouldn't have been able to play if it wasn't for Blockbuster. With Blockbuster, you would only get 1 or maybe 2 games if you're renting them on a weekend. 1 or 2 games that you could rent for $5 on a weekend. So something like Game Pass can introduce a lot of gamers that are within that 5 to 50% bracket to a lot of games for a very valuable price a month. That's nuts. The problem is that those games in there have to be of value to the consumer. So that's problem number 1. You have a business structure that is precedented and is dependent on gamers that don't see the value in the business structure altogether. They don't see the value in playing a whole bunch of games for now at $240 a year. No. They only buy 2 games. So right now that's $140. You want me to spend an extra $100 a year when I on average spend you want me to spend $240 a year when on average I only spend $140 and I can get the 2 games that I want? So that's problem number 1. Is that it's codependent on a demographic that doesn't see the value in the business structure. Secondly, those that do see value in the business structure, you're not tapping the true potential there in that demographic. Why? Because most of the games that are in there are not valued by that demographic. The demographic wants something on the quality of a God of War, Assassin's Creed, such as, so forth. I can go on and on and on. Now, granted, there are other games in there that I really think do add value to it for that 5 to 15% bracket, but there's not enough in there. Because again, I could pay $240 a year to get day and date access for it, or for the 1 or 2 games that 5 to 15% bracket see in there annually, I could just buy them. So again, value versus bargain. That's a problem with Microsoft in understanding this. But there's a silver lining. I'm gonna show you guys a tweet that I put out there. All's not lost. I don't agree with the fanboys on the other side that say Xbox Game Pass is doomed. I don't think it's doomed. I think that if they are transparent and honest with themselves, they can find a demographic and a structure that will help it propel. Let me show you something. This is a tweet that I sent out. Windows Gaming, Central Gaming had put this out here. They said Rebellion CEO is calling Atomfall a success and is praising Xbox Game Pass. Microsoft has been a fantastic partner to work with, right? And I had to respond. I said, this game is the ish. If you're into Fallout style journeying, looting, and discovery, you will love this. A lineup of AA/non-premium games like this that are actually good could make Game Pass a viable success for a specific demo. And I continue. Many gamers just wake up and say, oh man, looking for a fun co-op shooter or open world RPG to fill up my time. If filled with good quality experiences, Game Pass can be a good way to scratch that itch. What am I saying here? Atomfall retails for $50. South of Midnight, I think, retailed for $40. Perfect price points for games that do have a lot of AAA polish. Like Atomfall visually looks fantastic, but they're not like really bringing you all together new technologies or groundbreaking technologies, or there's nothing innovative about the game from a AAA standpoint, except, some things visually that's happening. But it's just a good looking AA attempt. I think Game Pass has something there to where if you want to give people access day and date to a lot of these experiences, I think you got something worth $20 there. I think it's viably accessible, doesn't break the bank. I think if you got a whole bunch of experiences like that, I think it's worth $20, to do a month to do something like that. Now, here's where it gets unpopular. I think they have to change the business model for it to maintain this viability. I can't see the day and date for the AAA games like Call of Duty, anything that should retail for $70. And let me tell you this, Indiana Jones shouldn't have been $70. That's why that kind of fell off the cliff of the earth, and why you haven't really heard Xbox talk too much about it, and why they're probably crossing their fingers that it sells well on PlayStation to help quote unquote, and I'm going to say it, in my opinion, helped save it. That's just my opinion. I don't think that it did that well. I mean, I know Aaron Greenberg came out and said otherwise. He did the same thing with Hi-Fi Rush, and look what happened to that studio. We've heard this before from Aaron Greenberg. He's just doing his job, which isn't always 100% transparent. It's part of marketing. That being said, I don't think Indiana Jones was $70, and I definitely don't think that Avowed was $70. Both of those games, I don't think did as well, as they should have. I don't think they've driven up Game Pass, nor do I think that they brought in enough revenue to justify what they needed to do. And I think that would not be the case if they were properly priced. I think when you sit there and tell people, look, this is a $70 title, there's a certain expectation, even if that game is still good. Even if that game is still good and I ain't got to pay the $70 for it because, you know what I'm saying? I'm getting it in a subscription model. You're playing with people's expectations. That price tag tells them what type of investment and level of quality they're getting all around with the game. So even if I play the game and it's good and I didn't have to pay the $70 because I'm engaging in the subscription model, I'm still going to walk away from it negatively. Why? Because you're confusing the identity of your product and your brand. If you make the identity better and do better brand identity and say, look, these are AA games with AAA polish. $50 is around the sweet spot. We got Clear Obscure that's coming out. Stuff like that where people can really like scratch an itch and be like, look, this may not be the objectively the game of the year, but I really like this. And man, this is a lot of quality in this. And it brings me back to something Mike Ybarra said. He said you should always make people feel like that you're overcompensating than undercompensating. So it's just a psychological marketing thing. Marketing 101, making people feel like you're giving them more value than less. So if Microsoft can continue to consistently pump out these $50 games, you know what I'm saying, and drop them day and date in the platform, and these $50 games have a lot of, they can explode the value quadrant of Game Pass to where it does objectively become a value for everybody, and people aren't just saying it because that's what you better say, it's a value, right? Another thing too is I think that if you're gonna have AAA games day and date in this platform, even like Call of Duty, you're gonna have to raise that price. And I hate to say it, it's gonna have to, like, there needs to be a $30 tier, a $20 tier, and then your $10 tier. That's what you're going to have to do. Now, if you want to keep the price extremely low on PC, like at $12.99, fine, so be it. But I think to make this subscription, viable, I think you're going to have a $10 tier, which you have where random games get added 6 months later. You're going to have a $20 tier where the AA games, these $50 titles come in day and date, and maybe the $70 games come in after 6 months, but the tier where you get everything day and date, I think that's going to have to go up to $29.99. And I think that's more than fair because you got services like GameFly that will give you any game for $39. If you went up to 4 at one time, you got to pay like what, $39.99 was the last time when I had GameFly that you had to do. It's probably a lot more expensive now. You probably got to pay $50 for it now. But yeah, that's what you're going to have to do. So I do think there's a future for Game Pass. I do think that it can exude value across the board for more gamers and objectively be valuable. I just think that people are being forced into saying it or else, but it's not a value to everybody because it's not valuable. It's a bargain. You look, I use this example all the time. If I live in a very pothole riddled, hilly side of Pennsylvania where it snows a lot. I can get a Lamborghini, but I ain't getting much use out of it. So a Lamborghini, even if it's 75% off, that's a bargain. But if I can only invest in one vehicle, do I want to get that Lamborghini? and I got to drive this vehicle, can't resell it. Like, you can't resell your games, at least if they're digital. If I'm going to invest this money, I better invest it in something I can drive. So even though a Lamborghini is 75% off is a bargain, it's not valuable to me because I can't use it. It has no value to me. I just sit there and I've wasted my money. So in order to get Game Pass out of that situation to where it's more valuable across the board to a specific demo that can help raise it up and something that Satya and Nadella can be proud of and add to its compensation package again, those are the two things I think they need to do. I think they need to be transparent and honest with themselves and understand, who their correct target demo is, and they got to redo the pricing structure. If they do both of those things, I really think Game Pass can soar and really do a lot of great things for Xbox and do it on its own, sustain itself, and not rely on PlayStation sales in order to subsidize it. Those days got to be over if you want Xbox or Microsoft Gaming to be a viable gaming company consistently. Well, that's it from your boy. Let me know what you think about all this in the comment section below, because like I always say, here's what I think. But if you did like what I have to say, check out the links below to follow me. They will lead you again to Hard Knock Digital Culture, Cloud Dosage, MM2K Gaming. If you could, before you leave, do us a huge favor. Hit that like button if you did enjoy this content. If you didn't like it, hit the dislike button. You know what I'm saying? Let's keep it real. Let us know what you think. Either put something in the comments or at the very least respond with a thumbs up or a thumbs down. You know what I mean? You won't hurt our feelings either way. And if you want more, if you enjoyed this content, and you want more content like this, stay tuned. Don't go anywhere. We're about to show you how to get access to even more great content right now. What's up, people? I hope you're enjoying MM2K Gaming News content. You have a possibility to get access to even more great content, and I'm going to show you how very quickly. First and foremost, you're going to want to become a member. And you can become a member at two different levels. You can become a member at the shout out level, which is our $1.99 or $2 tier, and then you can become a member at what we call the Foamy Homie tier, which is at $3.99 or $4, depending upon where you join. So I'm gonna show you how you join on YouTube. All you got to do is simply go to join right here, and then you can pick one of the two tiers, the foamed up or the Foamy Homie tier. And again, the Foamy Homie tier will give you access to everything. Just simply click on that and join and follow the instructions from there, and then you'll get access to our members' posts that we place over in the post section, where you'll get access to members' content Monday through Friday. All right. And then you'll get other access to streams and things like that. Now, if joining us over here is not your cup of tea, then you can become a Patreon member. Simply go look for MM2K Gaming News at Member Plus. And then what you can do is see the membership options over there. And again, we have two tiers. We have a tier one that's similar to the foamed up tier. We got another tier, tier two that's similar to the Foamy Homie tier. But here's the crazy thing: as you can see here, those prices are crossed out, and there's even cheaper prices. All through the month of April in 2025, we are giving people access on Patreon 50% off. So you can join us on Patreon, get 50% off your subscription and get access to the same great stuff. Another thing that you can do, another awesome perk, is when you join our Discord, which is in the description below. Join our Discord. You'll also get notifications to when all of this member content goes live. You can go to our special members only notification rooms, and you'll get access to the content there. So multiple ways you can join us over at MM2K Gaming News, get access to all the great content Monday through Friday, on top of the stuff that you already enjoy. We thank you again so much for your support. And until next time, you guys have a wonderful, wonderful gaming day. Peace.